We'll take a look at creating a site plan today. That's definitely uh, important. And in this class, we sort of did it backwards. In other words, the site plan is the beginning for a project. We're doing it more at the end, but I'll show you how to do it. It would be too restrictive, I think, to worry about the site plan for the first time you're learning Revit. So, but this is a project of mine. And here's where we would start. You know, the properties are all have uh, a defined property line. So if we take a look at this property line right here, there it's given an angle, the angle of the line, and the distance of that line. So the surveyor starts out by providing me with this information. There's a specific legal description of the property lines of this particular piece of property, and it's defined upon the earth, and that's it. This is the piece of property that the purchaser will own. And you can see that if we zoom in, there are uh, radiuses to the property lines. Some of them down here, you can see we have the angles and the lengths of the property lines. I paused there because there were two numbers and I wasn't sure why, and I'm still not to explain it. But anyway, you see, here's the uh, angle of the property line, and here's the length of the property line. So the architect would not want to design a house that did not fit on the property. You could see, imagine what kind of a disaster that would be if I were to place this house partially on this piece of property and partially on another. Now, each municipality has their own restrictions. They might be relative to lot coverage, what percentage of the house can cover the property, what the setbacks are from the property lines, what the height of the house, maximum height that it can be, and others. But if we take a look at these distances here, this is, I think this is here we go. This is 30 feet. So this looks like a setback line that I could not, if I were designing this house, I could not build closer to the property line than this setback, which is 30 feet. And if we go to the rear of the house, so let's do that. See, I don't see one, but there certainly is one there. Should be anyway. And I don't see one. There's definitely indications of what the distance is to the house from the property line, but I don't see a particular one. So I would assume, I guess I would assume it's probably 35 or 36 feet. Well, here it says 35-foot setback. Okay, so there is the property line. I'm sorry, the setback line. That's the distance that the house cannot encroach upon towards the actual property line. And I think we did okay on this one. Now, this is the final survey where the surveyor goes out and actually certifies what was built and that we do in fact stay within the property lines. So what we're going to do today, or what this tutorial is about, is simply creating a property line and understanding that there has to be a setback. Now, in Brooklyn, uh, there really isn't a setback. You can build right up to the property line, and your neighbor can build right up to the property line too, in some portions of Brooklyn and Manhattan and other parts of the country. But this is a suburban setting, so there has to be a distance away. You have to maintain a certain distance from. And in New Jersey, there's a 5 feet, sometimes only 3 feet distance away from the property line. But that's a more urban setting, but it's very important if you're really doing this to know what the setbacks are, because you definitely don't want to propose something that will not be allowed. And I'll tell you right now, for example, when I do things in Southampton out there on Long Island, their approval seal has a disclaimer that says, even though we have approved this, if in fact it is determined later on, I'm paraphrasing now, that uh, we haven't caught something, it's not our responsibility, it's yours. What I'm suggesting there is if the setback, for example, is assumed to be 30 feet, but it really turns out to be 35 feet, and the plan examiner doesn't catch that, and the contractor builds it, and later on it turns out that the house was built only 30 feet away from the property line when it was supposed to be 35, we can't go back to the building department and say, hey, you approved this, so therefore it has to be okay, because that's the disclaimer that many municipalities do not accept on their shoulders. So it's very important to maintain the right property lines and setbacks. So we're going to do that. Let's take this and move it out of the way. And I'm just going to take, and here's really what I talked about up until this point was just a foundation for what we're doing today. But normally we would go to the massing and site, and before even designing the house in any way, we would put the property lines in. Now, normally we would create those property lines by entering those bearings and distances, the angles of the line and the distance of it, and then Revit would create a enclosed property lines that would close all the way around from every corner to from the start to all the way around to the end. But like I said, we're doing this sort of backwards. And instead of starting with entering the distances and bearings, which I would do, because I want to make sure that my work works, and I don't like to do things twice. So I would start with that. But in this case, we did already started with the house. So we're just going to create property lines by sketching. And we're just going to draw some property lines in, and you can draw them anywhere you want to. This particular house this happens to be the garage. So I know I want my property line to be pretty far away from the garage so that I can bring a car into it. And we can be real simple and just do a rectangle, or you can get fancier, but this is fine. We just want to make sure that we have some distance around the house, and we'll just say okay to that. So now we have our property line. The next thing that I would like you to do for your final project is tell me what the length and distances, the angle and distances of these property lines, and Revit will do that for you. Unfortunately, I haven't loaded that into your template that you're using. So we're going to get an error message when I say to do that. So annotate, tag by category, click on that, and here's the error message. It says that there is no tag loaded for property line segments. Do you want to load one now? And the answer to that is yes. So it's not taking us to the proper location where our library is. So let's try this one instead. We're going to go to Insert, and we'll go to the Load Autodesk Family. And let's look for property lines and see what comes up. Now we're looking for the tags. Here it is, property line tag, and that's what we want. So we'll click on it. We'll say load. We're going to load that into the project. And now when I say annotate, tag by category, let's see what happens. Well, look at that. Now I have a property line tag. Now, this is personal preference, but I like the angle to be on the top and the distance to be on the bottom. And so I'm not accepting a leader line. If I clicked leader line, then look what would happen. It would put the information here with a line going to it, which I do not. I don't want that. So let's see if we can fix that by Yep, we can fix it by getting rid of the leader line, but it's not placed where I want it to be. So I'll just delete it. We'll do that all the way around the property line. Now, if your property line were, uh, and I kind of drew just straight lines, but let's take a look at what we have here. I mean, you can draw anything that you want, as long as there's some distance between the house. So tag by category, let's do it. Uh-oh, I still have my leader line selected there, so I'll take that away. And tag by category. We could do tag all, but let's just do it one at a time. 1, 2. It's a very simple site plan. So if I were designing this project from the beginning, I would look at what this legal description of the property is and start from that. And then my second step, before I even start designing the house, would be I would annotate, let's put some detail lines in there. And well, overhead's probably fine for the type, but I'm going to draw a line and I would say offset. Okay, so I know that maybe it's got to be 40 feet on that side. So I would say the offset's 40 feet and draw one there. And let's say it's 50 feet in the back. So let's try that, change that to 50 and see what happens. Notice that the property line's going to the wrong side of the line. So I hit the space bar and it comes back in. Whoa, looks like I got lucky on that one, just barely. Makes it. And then maybe it's 30 feet on this side. So detail line. Let's see what type it is. It's going to default to whatever it did before, which is overhead. And let's make that 26 feet on this side. And pretty close. And we'll say it's 40 feet in the front. So this would be my starting point, is I would take those. Well, let's do it the other way. I pause there for a second. I'm going to say pick a line and make that offset 40 feet. So I'm going to pick this line and there we go. So for a straight line, it's pretty easy, but what if that were an arc or something? You pick that arc and it would offset the arc by that distance. Okay, so my house obviously fits within the envelope. I might move things around a little bit, or if I were designing it, this is where I would start. And this would be my building envelope. So when I design the house, it can't be any bigger than this envelope, according to whatever municipality requirements are. So, okay, that's good. Now we have a lot here. I have a lot of distance here. So I would probably start by moving the house over to there. Except I wouldn't move the house, I'd move the property lines. Oh, let's do that. No, well, yeah, we're going to do it. There's really not any reason to do that, but let's do it. So we're going to move it from where? Let's say that I want this to be right up against there. Okay. So that would really be where if that were my side yard and it had to be that, then I would start my house right here normally because that would give me more space over there. So that's step one. We have our property lines and we have them located. So let's go down to our site plan. We do have a site plan here, I'm pretty sure. There it is. This is our sheet for the site plan. So let's go up to that site plan now and put it on a sheet. See, the box is not colored in blue. What that means is that this drawing does not appear on any sheet. So we're going to pull it over here and place it. Okay, looks like I could make it a little bit bigger. Let's try it. So activate the view. 1 inch equals 20. Well, maybe that's the best we can get because the next size would be 1 inch equals 10. And that's going to be twice as big. So maybe 1 inch equals 20 was what we want. Yep, we're going to keep it at that. 1 inch equals 20. Now I have it on my site plan. I can deactivate the view and move it around a little bit to get it where I want it to be. Now we didn't talk too much about the grid guides, but let's do that. Say I want this is the label, and we go to the view tab and we go to grid guides, and I think you already have a label made. So if we click on that, see that put in this little blue grid. I want your labels to line up. I put the center of the label right into there. And now this end is way too long. So we simply click on the drawing. We get that little bubble. And now we it's not smart to do that before you have your project located properly on the sheet, because watch what happens if I move the project now. My label moves too. So that would mean I have to go back in. Let's say that this is really where I want it to be. Well, then I have to move my label back down. And I've highlighted the label and I'm using the arrow keys to get it where I want it to be. The closer in I zoom, the less that label is going to move for each hit or tapping of the arrows. All right, so we have that in there. And now what we want to do is put in our topo surface. So let's take a look at this in 3D. And we have a site in there. I'm not sure where that site actually, no, we don't have a site. We have just the boundary lines. So this is our basic house. Let's go back to that site plan now. And let's go up to massing and site. Oh, no, it's not giving us these options. Why? Because the drawing's not active. We can draw right in the sheet if we right-click, activate the view. Well, let's do that. So I want to put a Toposolid in there, so I'll just click on Toposolid. There are some questions or settings, properties that Revit wants to know, and it wants to know, well, what level are you going to draw that relative to? And the grade is the perfect level. So we're just going to draw the topo surface now. We could pick these lines using the pick lines, but I'll just draw it around there. I'll say, okay. I'm pausing here because I'm thinking, should we change the material? But we'll do that in a second. Now let's go back and look at our 3D view now. Look at what we did. We put in a topo surface, or a topo solid, but it's flat. And your site would very rarely ever be flat. So I don't know, what do we do first? Let's change the material so that it looks like grass, because that's really what it would be. Let's bring it over to the right screen. What's the material here? Let's take a look. Just like when you're building your walls, we can make the topo surface have an assembly, and we're just going to say, well, there it is right there, grass. Okay, that's good. We'll take grass. And we'll say, okay, what happened here? Why didn't that turn to grass? Did I forget to do something? No, it's grass. Yeah, okay. So let's see what the properties of the grass is, because I would like it to be green. Yeah, it is green. Okay, let's take a look at, well, that's what it's supposed to look like. No, I don't see an issue there. Grass. We'll leave it in a foot thick for now. All right, let's go to realistic just to see what happens if it turns into looking like grass. Yep, it did. Okay, and my grass is a foot thick, so really good sod. Okay, so now we'll go back to the site plan, and now those are the property lines. Do we need to see those anymore for what we're doing? I'm gonna hide them. So when I pick the edge of the topo solid, that I don't pick the property line by mistake. Okay. So what are we going to do? Well, let's see. Let's look at edit. So we could edit the angles and lengths of these property lines, but we don't want to do that. We want to modify the sub elements. Okay. And we can add a point. let's see, let's modify it first and see what happens here. Okay, so here's our points. What is, if we modify the sub-elements here and we click on that point, it'll tell us what the property is. Now, the elevation of that relative to the grade is 0. So we're going to do a very simple toposolid. We're just going to say that we want the ground to taper away from the house. So we can make that, let's say make it -5 feet. Okay, so at that point, the grade is -5 feet. And let's change this one to, something didn't go right there. Okay, an error message over here. Okay, I got an error message that said you're pushing this down lower than the thickness of your toposolid. So let's edit the toposolid now. And let's add another material. We have a foot of grass, insert another material, and we're going to move it up so that it's inside of the core boundary. And we're going to call that earth. Let's see what we can do with that. EARTH. Let's see if there's any earth. Yep. I'm going to take this one. And how deep do we want that earth to be shown? So the basement's probably 10 feet deep from the grade at the most. So let's go 15 feet of thickness. Okay. Highlighted toposolid and floor overlap. Okay, so there's part of the house that's overlapping. We'll fix that later. Because if we take a look at this in 3D, there's floor in this house that are lapping over because we haven't cut anything out. If we isolate this, let's do that just to explain what we have there. Let's isolate that category. See, we haven't cut a hole for the house yet. So the error message that Revit was giving us was telling us, hey, you got grade on top of the floor. Can't, and do you want to do that? Well, no, we don't, but we don't want to stop doing what we're doing in order to fix it. Yeah, we will fix it in a moment. Okay, back to the site where I always like to uh, show my mistakes because I think it's a learning process because a lot of times you're watching the video and you make the same mistake. Boom, here's your solution. So anyway, here, now let's see if we can change that to -5 feet. The floor of the roof or toposolid is too thin for its given type. Okay. Yeah, all right. So what we're going to do is go back in. We're going to edit the type here. Whoops. We're going to edit this type, and we're going to change the grass. We're going to change it all to grass. Okay, so that's going to be 15 feet of thickness. And then let's just delete this completely for now. Okay. So now my grass is 15 feet thick. If we look at it in 3D, like, look how thick my grass is. All right, so back to the site plan. No, we didn't want to do that either. Well, maybe we can here. Okay, so let's change that to -5. Okay, so now that piece of the site is 5 feet below, and you can see these are contour lines. And let's change this to -10. Whoops, I want to change that to -10 feet. Okay, we'll leave everything else the same. Okay, so I like that. We'll accept that. Let's go look at it in 3D. Now you can see how how the site slopes away. But we want the topography to be right at the grade around here. So let's go back and edit that. So we're going to take this and now we're going to add some points. So we'll come around here. We're going to make those points 0. So let's put that in right there. And then we didn't want it to be -4. We wanted to change it. Let's see. Modify the sub-elements. There it is. We're going to click on it. And we want that to be 0 because that's the elevation of the grade. So we're going to say 0. Now let's put some more points in there. Okay, here is add points. We want it to be 0. All right. We'll put the points in and then we'll come back and change them, I guess. Let's grab our topo solid right here. Add some points. I would like it to default back to 0, but it's actually telling me what it is right now based on the contour and the slope of the property. Let's see. Now we'll go back in and we're going to pick the topo. So we're going to modify the sub-elements. There they are. Let's see if we can grab all of those and we can change the elevation. Since it's to 0. Modify the sub-elements. That should be 0. It is. That isn't. So we're going to say 0. That isn't. So we're going to say 0. We want these all to be 0. Changing them. Clicking it. And then when I'm finished, we'll take a look at it in 3D. Let's see what I did. So now you can see that the grade goes all the way around the house at the location where we've put our brick ledge. And that would be the requirements for your final project. I have a tutorial about how to put the driveway in if you're interested in that, but I'm not requiring you to show the driveway. Just want you to put the site in. Worry about the driveway if we had an advanced Revit class, but you can watch my tutorial. It's not that difficult to put your driveway in on top of it. All right, so that is the tutorial for putting in your topo service. So let's look at your site plan again real quick. Look at that. Does it have yep, it sure does. It has the angles and the property lines. It shows the grade. It's sloping away. I'm just thinking. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do, and I thought I paused it. Unfortunately, I didn't. But anyway, we're going to label the contours. Simply draw a line, pick a point, draw a line, and watch what happens. It labels the contours that follow that line. So that's what we're getting here is -1 foot, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -8. Didn't go through there. So it didn't look like. Let's give them elevations of the contours.